Hey guys, Hayden Crabtree here. Got a great video planned where we're actually going to be walking through some stuff from my book, Skip the Flip here. This is a resource video. So this is going to be a resource from page 142, 143, where we're actually get into analyzing some deals, the how-to on analyzing deals, what the income statement, what the balance sheet is. If you're watching this video, you haven't read this book, you got to read this book. I give it away for free, PDF, audio copy. Link is down in the description of this video. If you're currently reading this book and this is your first time watching any resource videos, I hope you get extreme value out of this. This is my goal for you, is to get just a ton of value out of this. In exchange, I just ask for one thing. It's absolutely free. Subscribe to the channel, like this video. I would super appreciate it. I put out a ton of real estate investing content here, absolutely free, so that we can work towards my mission of helping 1,000 people buy their first investment property. So with that being said, if you're in the book, if you're right here, page 143, and you go, man, this looks like a lot of numbers, I just don't understand it. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen with you. I'm gonna walk you through from scratch how to go through and build out this little deal analysis template. Now, if you're in the resources section, I have a spreadsheet that's already built in here for you guys, but I think it's extremely powerful for you if you can learn how things are actually built before you start using someone else's system, because you can fully understand it. And I think there's a lot of power that goes into fully understanding how things work before you just dive in and start using them. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not. You don't need to know how a car works. But whenever we're talking about your money and when you're gonna be putting it to use, I think it's valuable. So with that being said, again, we're gonna share my screen and walk you through how I built this, and then we're gonna go through page by page together and actually do this. So the first thing I wanna do, I'm just in Google Sheets here, Google Docs. It's absolutely free. Create a Google account and then just type in Sheets, go to it. And so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just type in and we're gonna recreate exactly what I have in the book here. So up top we have our year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then down below we have our income. If I type expenses, and the reason I'm doing this live time instead of just showing you guys is I want you to follow along with me, right? I think it'd be extremely valuable if you're watching this as you read through, you pause this video, or if you're actually on your computer, I would love for you to do this too in your own Google Docs, Google Sheets, so that you can take progress and actually learn how to get in the habit of doing this and build that muscle. So next up, we have our NOI, we have our debt, and we have our cash flow. So this up here is the income. This is the income statement up here. Now we're gonna build out our balance sheet down here. So we're gonna have our property value. We're gonna have our debt balance. And as a result, we're gonna have our equity, okay? Boom, so let's read through this. We buy a property that has $100,000 of annual income and it has $40,000 of annual expenses. So now that we've got this going through, what I want you to do is I want you to type in $100,000 right here. And actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab all of these, I'm gonna move it over, and I'm gonna hit this dollar right here. I'm gonna format all of these as dollars, okay? So I'm gonna type in 100,000 right here, and I don't care. We can do decimals, that's fine, I do it in the book. All right, so next up we're gonna have 40,000, so I'm gonna do negative 40,000 of expenses, and then NOI is just income minus expenses. So I'm gonna do income, and then because it's a negative, I'm gonna do plus expenses, and it's gonna give me $60,000, okay? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and we're gonna figure out how we're actually buying this property. We have our income up here, right? The next thing we want to do is we're going to figure out what is our capital stack, what kind of debt are we using on this property, and how's it valued. So in the book, we use a 6 cap, okay? So what that means, I'm going to take the NOI, I'm going to divide it by 6%. 6% in normal numbers, move the decimal 2 places, is just going to be 0.06. I'm going to take the NOI of year 1 divided by 0.06, and that's going to give us $1 million value. Now, in the book, what we talk about is we're going to use an 80% LTV, loan to value. So what I'm going to do is I want to come through here and I'm going to hit equals debt balance, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to do $1 million times negative 0.8, and that's going to give us our first year debt balance of $800,000. And then our equity, pretty simple, is going to be our property value minus our debt. So what we're going to figure out is that our equity from the very beginning is $1 million minus $800,000. That's going to be $200,000 of equity, okay? So everything making sense so far? If you have any questions through this video, you can drop a comment and I'll try and help you out in whatever way I can. So what we talk about, now I'm over at the bottom of page 145, is we want to figure out what our cash flow is going to be, so we have to calculate our debt payments. As you can see, to know our cash flow, it's NOI minus debt equals our cash flow. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a 30-year amortizing loan at 5%. So I'm going to show you guys how to calculate this out. So what I want you to do is I want you to type in term. I want you to type in rate. Okay, and so what I want you to do in term is going to be 30 years. So I want you to type in 30. Now in rate, I want you to type in the percentage. Now we're going to do 5%. So what I want you to do is I want you to hit this percent symbol while your box is on the rate, and I want you to hit 5. If you don't do that, if you just hit 5 and then you come up and you click percent, it's going to take you to 500%, which is wrong. We don't want that, okay? So what I want you guys to do now is, again, I write through this in the book, but the payment should be $52,041 a year. That will never change no matter what happens in history. This is how loans are calculated. So what I want you to do, and the formula is right here in the book, is I want you to go to the debt section. I want you to hit equals PMT, which is going to start a formula. Okay, and then I want you to click on the rate. So the rate is going to be 5%, so I can actually just click on this box right here. I've already got it calculated, and I want you to do it this way. I'm going to show you something really cool. So the rate is 5%, then I'm going to want you to put a comma, okay, and then I want you to click the term of 30. If you're reading in the book, top of page 146, you can see I type it in, but if you can actually use cells, it's better. We'll get into that here in just a second. And then I want you to hit a comma again, and I want to know the present value of that debt. Well, that's the debt balance right here. So I'm going to click on 800,000. I'm going to close the parenthesis, and I'm going to hit enter. And now we see our debt is $52,041 a year. Perfect, okay? So what I want actually is I want this to be a negative number just so you can see. So I'm going to type in a negative in front of this right here. We're going to get negative 52,041. Now this should look exactly like it does in the book right now. And so what we want to do is we want to figure out our cash flow. So when we're going to figure out our cash flow, I'm going to do equals sum. And I'm just going to add these two together. And that's going to give me $7,958. If I look in the book, it's the exact same. So this is how you walk through, this is how you do it, this is how I created it. So now what we've done is we've created the first year, essentially the first pro forma numbers for this property. And so we've got 1 year done, but that's just one point in time. We want to see how this investment is going to look through the rest of the time. So we have to fill out the rest of these numbers. So let's read a little bit more in the book. So it looks like I say we're going to have a 2% inflation a month. Okay, so we're going to take our income from $100,000 to $102,000. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to hit equals right here in this cell. I want you to take this old number times 1.02. That's going to give us $102,000. Now, if we're going to increase our income, we also need to increase our expenses. A very easy way to do this is just take this, grab the little bottom right, drag it down. That's going to give us negative $40,800. So as we can see here, our income increases by 2%, our expenses increase by 2%. What I want you to do is I want you to grab this NOI section. I want you to drag this formula over too, because what that's going to do for us is going to take E6 plus E7, and it's going to give us our new NOI of $61,200, and then our debt payment is going to stay the exact same, because that's how debt payments work, right? Is that this debt payment is going to lock in pretty much forever. But what we want to do, we'll follow along on the pages, we want to look at our new property value. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the same 6 cap from the year 1 to year 2. So what we can do is we want this new NOI divided by 6%. So we're going to take this formula, we're going to drag it over, and we get $1,020,000 is our new property value, which is our NOI divided by 0.06. So let's go through and let's fill out the rest of this, because one thing I want you to know, again, like we said earlier, is the debt payment is not going to change. So what I want is I want you guys to hit equals. I just want you to grab this number from right here. You can use the same number the whole time. And if you set it up this way, we're going to drag all this over here in a second. It's going to make it easy. So just hit equals D9 and bring it over from right there, because your debt payments are not going to change at all. And then our cash flow, we want the same thing. We want our NOI minus our debt payments is going to give us our cash flow. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag that over too. We're going to see that our cash flow numbers increased, and that's mainly because our NOI increased, but our debt payments didn't increase. So our cash flow is going to increase even though our NOI didn't. So let's see the rate at which our cash flow actually did increase, okay? Because we see everything else here is increased by 2%, but did our cash flow increase by 2%? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this year's cash flow divided by the prior year's cash flow, and what we're going to see here is that we actually had 115% growth, which is really a 15% growth, right? 100% would mean it didn't change. So even though everything else grew by 2%, our cash flow increased by 15%. And the reason that is because our debt payments did not change. Those stayed the same while everything else increased, and that gave us a positive leverage effect. Now, what I want you guys to do is I want you to figure out what is the equity in this property. We've just figured out what is our cash flow. I want you to figure out what is our equity in this property. So what I want you to do is, if we want to get the debt balance, let's see if I reference how to do this. No, I said I'll do the math for us. So you're going to learn how to do the math real quick. Because what I'm going to do is this debt balance is I'm going to use this exact same formula. Or actually, I'm going to create it. I'm going to figure out what the present value is. So I'm going to hit equals present value, open parentheses, rate, we can hit 5%. Number of periods, we're going to hit 29, okay? 29. Actually, what I'll do is I'll open the parentheses, we'll make this dynamic. I'll do 30 minus year 1, because we're now a year into it, and then that's essentially 29. So that's telling the formula that we're 1 year into this, this payment term, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do that, close that parentheses, and then we're going to do payment amount. Well, we have our payment amount in here, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to click this, and I'm going to close the parentheses, and let's make sure it gave us the right answer. It should be $787,958. Boom. That's the formula that we use. What we did, if you haven't seen my other video, is how a loan amortizes. We just use the Excel formula to calculate where it's going to be, and because I set it up as the one thing I could actually do to set it up better, if you guys want to learn how to use Excel good, you could hit this number right here minus year 1 to let it know how far into the loan we are, and then hit equals. And then for our equity amount, we're just going to drag this over right here too. Let's make sure that's right. It's not. We need to make sure we hit a negative on the front end, and then we're good. So boom, our equity is $232,000. Let's see how much our equity increased. We know that everything increased at 2% because of inflation, but we saw that our cash flow increased more than that. How much did our equity increase? Our equity increased at a 16% rate. That's because of our debt being paid down. So that's a pretty powerful lesson there, is that even though everything increases at 2%, our equity and our cash flows are increasing at way, way more than that, right? So now we've completed this pro forma for year 1, year 2, and because we've used some formulas, because we've set this up, it's actually really easy to finish this 5-year pro forma out. And what I guys want you to do, here is grab all of these, just like I did. I want you to grab all of these in one go. Just hold it down, drag it, and then drag it over to year 5. And let's make sure that I have everything set up right. So I'm going to show you guys a mistake I made. Again, I'm doing this live time with you. One thing, a mistake that I made, is that you have to set some of these. If you're going to use formulas, you have to set them. And so what that means is that whenever I drug this over, it didn't hold these right here. As you can see, it used D18. Let me just get out of my way. D18 here, and it was dragging these over. So what I have to do, I don't know why it's set up like this, why they use dollar signs, but you have to come in front and put a dollar sign here and a dollar sign here. And then in front of this D17, a dollar sign and a dollar sign. And we don't want to put a dollar sign on the D5 because we want that to change as we go along. So I'm going to hit equals here, and then I'm going to drag these across again. Let's make sure I got it right. So boom, that should be correct. And what that did for us is it allowed these two to stay on these numbers here, while it still allowed this one, F5, essentially what year and how far into the loan we are. It allowed that to be fluctuated and allowed it to be exactly where we want it to be and how we set it up. So as we look at this result should be the exact same of what we see in the book. As I look at it, it certainly looks like it is. And so this is essentially how you create a pro forma from scratch for a property. All of this should be done for any property that you analyze. Now, there's a lot of deal analyzers. I built a full deal analyzer that you can get, again, inside of the resources section, haydencrabtree.com/resources. And you have to know how this works, right? These are all a bunch of random numbers that don't make any sense to us if we don't understand how this works in relation to analyzing a real estate investment. So this is a very important video. If you couldn't follow along in the book, I hope you could follow this along. If you have any questions, comments, whatever it may be, feel free to drop those below. I hope this video was super valuable for you. If you got any value out of this whatsoever, either in learning how to use the Google Sheets or learning how to analyze a deal or whatever it may be, I would super appreciate it, again, if you would hit that like button, if you would subscribe to the channel. And that's pretty much all I have, right? This book's super powerful. I would love it if you drop me an Amazon review of what you thought, but really I just want you to make progress as a real estate investor. Real estate investing has changed my life. I know it has the power to change your life. If you take all these lessons on this channel, if you take all the lessons in this book and actually apply those lessons, then you pretty much can't fail, as long as you just apply the lessons and you keep going and you be patient, but you also put forth a lot of effort, a lot of learning, again, most importantly, actually taking action. So hope this video was valuable. I hope you guys will check out some other videos, and I'll see you next time.